I'd like to welcome Counselor Givner and Counselor Sullivan, who were brave enough to come down here, and Counselor Megan McGrath Smith. And we have online, we have Counselor Kevin Jordan, Linda Vacan, Howie Graney. Anybody else that I see or don't see up there? No?
Madam Chair,
Yes? Go ahead.
you guys just be careful going home.
I will, thank you, Howie. Yeah, it's pretty slippery out there. And Carmen Ocasio is coming in right now, so take your time. It is slippery out there. Okay. All right, so I'll call this meeting to order and get my agenda. The first item on the agenda is the NAGE contract, and it's a settlement agreement by and between the City of Holyoke and NAGE. And we have the president of the union here, Federico Delgado, AKA Polo, and we have the auditor here as well. And would you like to go over this? It looks like, to me, that there was no language changes as far as the contract goes, but it was all negotiations for finances. Is that correct? So feel free if you want to come in or get up on the mic, whatever's easier, and tell us a little bit about it.
Hi, I'm Polo. So the negotiation was we did a salary study for our surrounding cities.
We can't hear him.
Okay.
Can't hear him. Microphone must not be on.
It's probably on the side. Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Polo. So we did a salary study for our surrounding cities, and we are bumping up some of the positions, the clerical and inspector positions around our city to match the surrounding cities. Some are getting 3%, which they did already this past July, and some are getting a bump in their pay.
Okay.
And it varies from different positions.
And Polo, what surrounding cities did you compare?
I believe we did Chicopee, West Springfield, Agawam, Long Meadow. We have the chart. I can email it to anyone that requests it.
No, that's okay. Thank you, I appreciate it. And this was for a transfer from, let's see, $60,000 as follows. From the mayor, contract negotiations, $60,000, and there's several positions. Does everybody have the positions in front of them, or do you want me to read them all?
I have them.
Okay. So as you see, there's
I have a
several.
question on one.
Go ahead.
Sanitation, 10 grand.
So for sanitation, the 10 grand, that's two positions. That's myself, and Irma. But besides the names, it's two positions for sanitation one, and each of them are getting 5. We just recently added a new sanitation one, which is, at this moment, it's Irma, but she's the newest inspector.
You might want to use a last name because
Ramirez.
Okay.
Ramirez, I'm
they
sorry.
may
Irma
think
Ramirez.
Irma, you know.
Yeah, no, Irma Cruz
City
retired.
Clerk's office, okay. So you just added a new one, okay.
I believe it's the Ezekiel Act that we added it. During that time, that's the position we just recently added into it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Did that answer your question, Counselor Graney?
Yes,
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
I have some questions.
Go ahead, Counselor Jordan.
Thank you. Can we get a copy of the salary study? And then the second question is, we've already given the positions a 3% increase for this year. All these are enhancements on top of the COLA increase we gave for this year?
That's correct.
So how much was the cost of the COLA increase?
The 3% from last year, from July 1st,
Yeah.
I actually do not have that figure, I'm sorry. I can figure it out quick, though.
I think we'd have to see the study in order to understand all these additional enhancements. So these aren't pay raises, these are pay adjustments due to supposedly we're uncompetitive to other communities. Allegedly. And this is for what, this is gonna be $60,000 a year in total cost. This is a full year value, or is this for a portion of the year?
That's for a full year value.
Are they being paid retroactive?
That's
Back to July 1st?
That's correct.
Is there anybody, how many of these positions are vacant?
At the moment, just one in the city clerk's office, the principal clerk.
Okay. So when we're giving these type of alleged salary study enhancements, have we had any difficulty filling these positions? I
Yes,
don't recall there ever being a problem with the clerk's position or assistant registrar. We've had a problem filling the building custodians at the War Memorial.
correct. Right now, we have a floater.
All right, so let's go through these. So assistant assessor, that position is currently occupied. We've had a problem filling that job?
It's currently occupied.
Okay. Assistant assessor, administrative assistant to the assessor, have we had a problem filling that job?
Yes, we just filled it about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month.
How long was it vacant for?
6 months to 8 months.
6 to 8 months? Do we have any, I mean, you represent the union, right? You're the head of the union?
Correct. I just took over February 1st.
Okay. And we know you, and we know you're a good guy, all of that. On the other hand, the city council should be having the personnel director here. I don't know, is she available? And the department heads of these departments making an argument as to why they're having a difficulty filling these jobs. Otherwise, to me, it looks like we're just handing out money.
Excuse me, Counselor Jordan, the personnel director was not asked to attend this meeting. Did you want to say something? And I'm not sure if you realize she just lost her dad.
I understand that, but I'm assuming by us having this meeting, we were gonna do it at a time that was convenient for her.
Well, I did not think to include her in this, but the mayor is here
I mean,
if he,
this was I mean, I think my concern is, I want to be fair to employees. I want people to have annual pay raises. But this isn't that. This is saying, we've done some study that says not only do you deserve a pay raise, but we need to give all these people extra money because theoretically they're in threat of leaving. So I'd like to hear from personnel as to why we're having, what's the business case for why all these extra pay increases need to be doled out. And with all due respect, I don't need to hear that from the head of the union. Naturally, he's going to advocate for his people. I wouldn't expect anything less. I'd like to hear from management about the study and what went into that. What was the difficulty of filling the jobs? Is there a flight risk? You know, that's the kind of considerations we need to get into when we're just, I mean, we've got an extremely tight budget.
if I could ask
I
a
want to make sure
question,
we don't have layoffs.
when were the last collective bargaining raises given out, if you know?
That's fine, it was July 1st.
July 1st of 2023,
Yep, July 1st of 2023, and then in January, we actually give step raises.
and then in January?
Those are steps for people that haven't reached their maximum
Okay.
step.
All right.
I guess my friendly request, Madam Chair, would be we table it to when personnel can come in. These are all slated to be retro anyways. So I don't think waiting a couple weeks or whatever is gonna hurt anything, but, you know, I'd like to see the study and then hear from Kelly why the city needs to give all these extra enhancements.
And the mayor is here tonight, and thank you for coming. If you have something you'd like to say.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe it was just we didn't set the table correctly here because it isn't at all what Councilor Jordan is referring to. But although he's raising some questions, rightfully so, I think Lisa and Kelly were both actively involved, and there was a process that had happened to look into this that just folks weren't prepared to present. But I think Mike Bissonette, if I'm not mistaken, is on the line that
Yes,
might have
he is.
prepared for the conversation tonight.
Yes,
So if I can just, through the chair, if you want to just bring in Mike and allow him to
sure.
speak on what's going on here so we can make some
Okay.
informed.
Attorney Bissonette, go ahead. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilors, thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the chair. I spoke with Lisa this afternoon just to get some background. As many of you know from the budget discussions for the last budget that we're currently in, there were raises given out to the members of this union as per the contract, which is now in its second year. As part of the original contract, the parties agreed that the city would conduct a salary study. In this instance, I believe 6 communities in the valley were looked at for comparable positions. Some would take offense that there may be some type of conspiracy here to keep these figures from the council. They're public figures. I don't see any reason why anybody in the law department or human resources would do that. But those figures are available, and I believe I heard Polo Delgado say that those would be made available upon request earlier this evening. So we can take Polo at his word, and I certainly think the administration would not have any problem turning that salary study over. But these are based upon that study to make them comparable. They're also done with a view that department heads' concerns that were raised with the mayor and HR about filling these positions as we're having problems at the bottom end as the promote from within seems to be working, but we're losing people to other communities for some of these lower positions. We're not having that pipeline internally. That got exacerbated, as everybody knows, throughout the entire pandemic when we lost a lot of people. We do have vacancies at department head level, sub-department head level. Those are being filled as best as can be. But again, the thought behind this was that we're going to continue to lose people, and these positions are not just anybody can fill them. These are really the lifeblood of what keeps the city, any city, running, and they are in essence mid-level management. So I believe that's the reason why the parties agreed that this would be an appropriate way to compensate and try to retain these individuals. And so that's why this agreement was sent to the mayor. He signed it and is now seeking appropriation to bring it into effect. I hope that clarifies it a little bit. Happy to take any questions, and those I can't answer, we will get you an answer.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Just a second, please. Counselor Givner would like to say something or ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just also be interested in the salary studies. I think I don't know if you realize, but if you email that stuff to Jeffrey, he will circulate it to the entire council. But I think it makes sense that we're giving it sounds like we're required to give the 3% raise, correct?
Correct.
And then the additional raises are to be competitive with other cities.
Correct.
And they don't sound astronomical. It was 60,000 total for all. How many people are getting raises?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 15, I think, I counted.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And this is like 3,000 annually, 5,000 annually. It's not like someone's suddenly getting a 30% increase or something, right?
I believe the most is 5,000, which is maybe a handful of people.
Right. Okay. I mean, I would like to see the salary study, but I do believe it was done because you said it was done, and because Kelly was working on this, and Mike Bissonette just confirmed it, our attorney. So I'm completely comfortable voting yes on this tonight if we think that it can move forward in the full council. But of course, if we feel like it won't and we need additional information, then of course I would agree that it could stay here.
What I agree, what I'd like to see as well is the salary study, but I would like to see this passed tonight. I don't see any reason why it couldn't be, even if we don't have that salary schedule, because city council doesn't negotiate contracts. The mayor and the law department and the unions are the ones that negotiated this. We don't negotiate this. And if there's a problem with personnel, if there's a problem hiring people because we can't get the people that are qualified, then let's have a meeting with personnel only and talk about that rather than hold up these raises. That would be my suggestion. Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, so I agree with the chair that we don't negotiate the contracts, but we do approve the funding. And when I hear that a study was done, which was great, except for the name of one city, and when I hear Long Meadow was part of that,
Don't quote me on Long Meadow. I just,
He
I
just
know,
started.
like Springfield, we didn't do Springfield. Don't quote, I don't know 100% sure with Long Meadow, but
Okay.
so.
I can send it to everyone in the morning. I have it on my email now. I can go on my phone and just forward it to you guys.
You can forward it to Jeff.
Yeah, I can forward it to
Jeffrey,
Jeff,
and
of course.
he'll get it to us. All set?
Yep.
I think Counselor Graney, Counselor,
Just quick, Madam Chair, through the chair to Attorney Bissonette. I thought that all these raises were done by collective bargaining between union and management. This seems like these studies were based on a study. To me, that doesn't make sense. Were these raises collective bargain?
always.
When the last contract was signed, I would imagine that the contract was signed for a period of time, and both parties are supposed to adhere to that contract.
Counselor Bissonette, did you hear the question?
I did, thank the chair. Great question, Councilor Graney. In this case, this contract, this collective bargaining contract with NAGE had a reopener provision, which means that once the salary study was completed, the parties would take that material under advisement, would then reopen the contract for negotiations. And, excuse me, what's before you tonight is the result of that, the reopener.
Thank you. Polo?
I'm just, prior to this contract, I believe PSA, which is a supervisor union, did the same salary study, same thing, maybe 2-3 years ago when
Yeah, you're correct.
Building Commissioner Cody was here,
Yeah.
that he got an increase, and a few other department heads, Yoni from Conservation and all that. So the same study did happen with department heads. So now this is the clerical side.
Okay. Counselor Jordan, is your hand raised?
Yes, it is, Madam Chair. A couple of points. One was,
Can't hear you?
how about now? Can you hear me
Okay,
now?
yeah.
I'm not sure why the word conspiracy was brought up. No one is suggesting there was a conspiracy to not give us the study. I'm simply pointing out we keep referencing a study that no one has seen, at least on the council that I'm aware of. And people need to come prepared to these meetings for when we're going to have these. And these documents need to be provided to us in advance. And we need to see them to justify why we should be voting for things, okay? So that would be the reason I will be proposing that we table this. The second point is, These are raises in addition to the other raise that we already gave. So to Counselor Givner made the point, this doesn't seem like much. This is in addition to the 3% raises we've already given. So this is more than 60 grand. This is 60 on top of the 3% COLA that's already been given. So we need to see that. We need to see the study. And when we did the quote unquote study analysis before, and I heard the building commissioner's name was referenced, we had a difference of opinion about giving further raises to the building commissioner at the time. So I think once we see that, we can see if this is actually in fact true. Otherwise, if we're going to be giving out increases relative to studies that we've never seen, that sounds a whole lot like a rubber stamp city council to me. So that's not the way I operate. So I would make a motion to table this, get the study, review it, and maybe this is all justified, maybe it's not. We'll find out. Thank you.
If I could, Polo, how long were you guys in negotiations?
For a little over a year.
Okay, so it wasn't just a rubber stamp?
No.
You did the study and you negotiated fairly for these increases?
Yep. I was vice president at the time when we were in negotiation, and we negotiated the 2%, 3%, and then 2% with the study being open on the second year, which we are currently in the second year.
Okay.
Madam Chair, so I'm being clear. It's the city council, not Mr. Delgado, us, that would be the rubber stamp. What they do is all well and good. What I'm alleging is if we're going to approve $60,000 based on a study we've never read, then we're a rubber stamp. That's just not doing our job. So that's why I think we're compelled to table this, read the study, see if it's justified, and have Kelly in when it's convenient to her. Thank you.
Okay, one thing I did forget at the beginning of this meeting was to read this motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection. So all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so go ahead, Counselor Sullivan.
Yeah, through the chair to Counselor Jordan.
Yes, sir.
Kevin, just to not hold this up, but what would you think if we move this forward without recommendation, and that we'd have 2 weeks now to for everybody to study it, and then vote on it 2 weeks from now rather than put it off for a month?
I'm okay with that, provided we're going to get the study. We have plenty of time before the full city council meeting. And then if we do have questions, either the mayor or personnel or whoever is going to be available to review that in some sort of open forum,
Yep.
Okay.
then I'm okay with that.
Okay, and
Yep, no, I agree. We're sitting here right now, and he's getting 2 weeks' notice, so.
right.
I will send it first. I can send it right now. I just don't want to be on camera.
He can send
on my phone.
the study right now. He'll send it to Jeff, or he can send it to all of us, whatever's easier, and we'll take care of that. So do I hear a
Okay,
motion?
That sounds fair. Yeah, that sounds
Do I
fair. So
hear a motion?
to adopt without recommendation.
Second,
All those, we'll roll call. Counselor Sullivan?
yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
Okay. Did you want anything else?
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Polo.
Have a good night.
And
You too.
this will come before the full city council in 2 weeks, and 2 weeks from yesterday, with no recommendation.
Perfect.
Okay?
And I'll go on my phone right now and send it to
Okay,
Jeff.
and we'll, make sure that you're here, and I'll ask Kelly to come in as well. Okay?
I'll reach out to Kelly in the morning when I'm
Great. Thank you very much.
in. Thank you,
Polo.
guys.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so
Motion to take up item 2?
so moved.
Oh, so- Or that's,
Thank you.
Is 1 and 2 the same?
I know they're marked funny. Okay, this is, one thing I would like to do, though, while we're here, is move ahead, take something out of order, and this would be the item introduced by Counselor Tessa Murphy Ramboletti, ordered that the City Council invite the Mayor, Police Department, and relevant financial department heads to a future meeting. Tessa unfortunately had to work tonight, so I did speak with Attorney Ball, and she would like us to move this to May 15th, and they'll have a lot more information on it. So if I could have a motion to do that,
Second.
and...
Motion to table to May 15th?
Yep.
Second?
All right, Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. All right, so...
Madam Chair, just so
You
we
have
were
to-
clear, we passed items 1 and 2, correct?
Yep,
Okay.
all right. And then this one is introduced by Counselor Meg McGrath Smith, ordered that the City Council review for approval the fiscal '24 projects from the CPA.
We're taking up item 3.
What's item 2? I hate it when I do this.
Item 3.
Item 2, are you talking about 2? Can I see your thing?
You're taking up item 3, correct?
Yes,
That's what I asked.
that one's done.
Right.
And that, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. So what I did was I went through this, all the CPA things that they'd like us to approve. And for fiscal '24, these are the recommendations. And we can go through these if anybody has any questions. Meg McGrath Smith is here, the city councilor from Ward 7, as well as the chair of the CPA committee. Number 1 was Appleton Mills, the Far Alpaca for housing. The vote was 6-2 for $200,000. Number 2 was Library Commons Phase 2 housing project, $100,000, and that vote was 6-2. Number 3, Jones Point Phase 1 rehabilitation. That was an 8-0 vote, $350,000. And Wisteria Hearst retaining wall, which I believe we talked about last night, is on here as well, and that vote was 8-0 for $264,000. And then number 5, the City Hall granite stairs, $30,000 for a feasibility study, and that was voted 7-1. And then number 6, the Korean War Memorial Restoration Project, $2,000, and that was 8-0. And then number 7, the Holyoke Veterans Graves Restoration Project, 8-0, that was $6,000. And number 8, the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round Horses Stirrup Replacement, $16,875. Is there anyone who would like to take any one of these up specifically? And we can have Counselor McGrath Smith talk about it. Counselor Sullivan.
Yeah, well, as usual, I think the CPA committee has done a fantastic job. The one project here that I don't agree with is the wind development project. This is, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I believe it's a $60 million project.
Is that one of the ones that we're talking about tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
So, for them to say that, to not get to 200,000, that they would have to cut back substantially and change their plans, I just don't find that believable. And at the time this project was undertaken, I had been through that building thoroughly with the building inspector, with our demolition supervisor at the time, with our OPED director, and it was absolutely atrocious what was going on. And now to read that due to additional deterioration, it is now apparent. This was apparent from the get-go. It was apparent to anybody at all with any building experience whatsoever when they went into that building what they were getting into. All right? And then to say that in a project of this scope, that 200,000 is going to force them to make severe cutbacks and changes in their plans, I just don't find that believable either. To me, we have buildings like the one we're sitting in here right now, City Hall, all right, that is the crown jewel of Holyoke, and is in a constant state of deterioration. If we look right out the windows here from the chambers, we'll see slates broken and falling off the roof. All right? So this one I can't go on. All the rest I will support fully.
Do you want to say anything about that, Counselor McGrath-Smith?
Yes, thank you. So I do want to just start by the committee did their due diligence in terms of hearing all of these projects in public presentations, read their applications, scored them. They pre-score them so that we come with a very clear understanding of what are the most highly scored projects by all of us by average, and then we take them from the top. I will say that this batch of projects was really hard because a project can only, at the highest, can score 28 points. And all of the applications came to us scored between 23 and 26. So all of them are highly rated, right? So then it became a really difficult conversation around, we only have so much money, right? Here's the pot that we have that we can recommend to council. And where do we want to place that, right? How do we make sure that we are, doing our, requirements around, at least 10% in each category, but also how are we being thoughtful about the priorities and the preservation plan, and getting to all of the categories. And I will say that we had 2 housing projects that were brought to us as potential applicants. One was the Appleton Mill project, the former Faro Paca Mill, and they asked for $300,000. And then the Library Commons 2 project, which we had previously funded, came back and said, again, housing projects take forever to move forward. It's incredibly complex and complicated, and it takes a lot of different funding sources. And a lot of these projects that started several years ago are in the boat with inflation that they are really needing now to find additional sources of information now that they're in construction or funding rather, and unable to sort of finish with the finishings that they would like to use versus lowering the quality of the materials that they're using in people's apartments. And so Library Commons 2 came back to us as well and said we'd also like another $250,000. And between the two of them, the committee had a tough decision to make. Do we support one and not the other? And there wasn't really will for that. We were pretty split. There were people who supported both, people that would love to give more to one, more to the other. So the reason why you'll see that it says the 6-2 vote on both of those is because we took them as a package. It was a compromise in the committee for us to be able to look at both of these projects, want to support the investment in the city and signal our support of it, but also to not only support Library Commons 2, which we had previously supported, and to also support the Wind Development Project, which a number of folks in the committee were really excited about seeing, especially the community center. And a good chunk of the funding that we decided to move forward, which was $200,000, less than they asked for, was in order to support them having the finishings that they wanted to do at the quality level they wanted to do in the apartments, but also to finish out the community space in the community building.
Counselor, you had said they scored between, what was the numbers again?
All of the projects scored between 23.8 and 26.12. And the Wind Development Project was a 26.12. It was actually the highest rated of all projects.
Okay.
The Library Commons 2 project was the second highest scoring at 25.375.
25.275, did you say?
25.375.
Okay. And what is the, what's the highest you could score? 28? 28, okay. Okay. Anybody here at the table have any questions or anything? If not, Counselor Jordan has his hand raised, so I'll call on him and then we can see if anybody else has any questions.
Okay, great. Counselor McGrath-Smith, I had a question for you. I have some of the same concerns that Counselor Sullivan had relative to the wind project, but I did want to ask you, we have to give at some point money towards affordable housing, right? It's
Yes.
that this is basically, well, I think it's what, 20% of the money has to go in that affordable housing bucket. So is there other affordable housing projects in the queue that we could give this money to if we didn't give it to them? Because obviously, if I had a magic wand, I would like more for historic preservation. He cites a great example of more stuff at City Hall, other things. All these other projects are absolutely wonderful that were brought forward. So could you just kind of speak to the process, like what else is in the queue that we have to pick from in the affordable housing category if we didn't do this? And because do we really have other options with the money, or should we save it for a future year in this category? And is there something in the pipeline we could give it to, if not this? So you could kind of talk about that a little bit, please.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So I will say that the housing category has been the least funded of all of the three, because we have, of course, the historic preservation category, the open space and recreation category, and then the affordable or community housing category. And we're required to spend 10% in each. And moving into this cycle, because we actually had several cycles in a row where we did not give any money to community housing or affordable housing, and instead we had to put money aside. But as a result, we weren't funding projects either. And I don't know if anyone remembers the newspaper article in the Gazette from, maybe a year and a half ago. And there was front page, area communities not meeting requirement by state around the housing category. And they had audited, I know because we were contacted, they had audited all of the communities around us and found that a lot of communities weren't, and the state was pushing like, you can't do this. You have to. This is the requirement of the CPA legislation. And at this point, we are at 10%. And so we have to make sure that we're continuing to fund housing. The other categories are much more highly funded because we have a lot of other investment that we're trying to do in the city, right? We have a lot of historic preservation projects. So as of, and I can redo the numbers so that they're up to date, but for example, up through FY23, we had spent 37% of CPA funding on historic preservation, 47% on open space and recreation, and 16% on the community housing category. But then that dropped to 10% because we had 2 years, because with ARPA funding, there were other funding sources that they could get a lot more. Our sources is best in terms of housing projects, best as match money. We're first in, we need to show a community support. You give us this very tiny amount of money as compared to how expensive our project is, and we'll use that to go chase the larger pots of money from state and federal sources, or finishing money. We are so close, and we just need to do that last 10 steps to the finish line. And so there's just less wiggle room in terms of where CPA is a great fit for housing versus historic preservation. There are really great tiny projects that can come to us, hey, we have 10 gravestones, can you come give us a small amount, versus the Lady Liberty statue, where they're can you come up with X amount of dollars, and you're now talking over $50,000, right? So in the other categories, we're just finding a wider range of smaller to bigger projects, whereas housing, it's just a different beast. It's a different category in terms of how it operates and connects with CPA. These are projects that are the first that have come to us, and one of them is a returner, right? Library Commons 2 is returning to us saying, you gave us the first in money that allowed us to chase all of the money that we got, and now we're so close, but with inflation, we have X left. And we didn't give them everything because it was sure, we understand we want to support you, but also you have to make do with what you have, and also keep looking for other sources. And that was true for what we did with both projects. We responded with, we understand you're trying to cross that last finish line. We'll meet you where we can, but we also have to be thoughtful about how much money we're putting forward into any category, because there's so many good projects that we want to fund, we want to invest in the city around.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Givner?
Good.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were finished. No?
I just have one small follow-up,
Go ahead.
which is, could she discuss why 200,000? And if we did, say, would it be possible if we did a smaller amount that would be in keeping with the 10%? Like, for example, if 10% of the total money we're distributing this year, or that we've received, is $800,000, that we could give 80 grand instead of 200 grand and keep at that 10% threshold, so that we stay in compliance, but at the same time, you know, we maybe don't have to give 200. Could you explain why 200 is needed?
So why 200 instead of 300? Or like, why is it not lower?
Correct.
city-
Why 200 versus if our goal is to keep 10% in affordable, it's 10% of our total money that we're taking in, right? So if we took in $800,000, then if we took in 800,000, right, then we would give out theoretically 80 grand in this category. So I guess the question is from there is, are we going to be exceeding the 10% by giving them 200? Could we give a lower amount so we keep the 10% compliance, but maybe we don't have to give them that as much as 200? But I'd like to hear, maybe there was a real reason it has to be 200. Thank you.
No, there isn't. There's not a reason why, like, we're not going to hit the 10% if we, don't give the 200,000, because we have the other project as well that we're putting forward in this round. But also knowing that these are the projects in the pipeline and have been for some period of time. I think your other question, and I'm sorry I didn't get to it, was around like what else is coming. There's nothing that's shovel ready next year. These projects take time. So it's also knowing if we fund these two projects this year that are now here in front of us, then it may be another 2 years before we're looking at another potential project. And in the meantime, we either have to take that money and put it aside and just put it into an encumbered account, like a reserve account, or we can say, well, we've actually already spent our 10%, and so we can fully fund, we can fully recommend funding that comes to us next year into the other two categories. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
Counselor
Madam
Givner?
Chair?
Second, Counselor Givner's next.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just had a quick, comment that, I would support this simply because it's 88 units of housing for seniors. And as we all know, Holyoke is in desperate need of housing for everyone. I think this is a great start and a great project to start that. It's going to take some time, but we haven't seen a lot of projects come in front of us with this amount of units that are coming available, and all of which are have a percentage, below the median income. So they're all considered affordable housing. And I know that many of our seniors are, they're struggling, and this is one way to help them in a huge way. This is a way for the city to really, stand behind them and say, hey, we've created all this housing to help you out. So I think it's a great project, and I think it makes perfect sense that once these projects are underway, there's not likely to be another giant project like this that's going to come before us immediately. So I'm definitely all in for this. Thanks.
Counselor Bacon has her hand up, and then Counselor Graney. Oh, I'm sorry, then Counselor Sullivan, then Counselor Graney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick technical question. How many dollars are currently in the housing section of the CPA fund, the total money?
We currently do not have anything in reserve because we've hit the 10% through when we recommended funding to council for the Library Commons 2 project 2 years ago for $250,000 that sustained helping us hit the 10% cap over the last 2 years.
So are you saying if the 200,000 and the 100,000 are funded, there will be no money in the housing account?
We won't need to because we'll have satisfied the funding requirement that we have to fund 10% or more in every category.
Right.
If we do not,
So-
so for example, if you tonight And then we move this to full council where the recommendation is to reject both of these, Library Commons 2 and Wind Development. We will be forced to take a chunk of this and put it into a reserve because we won't be meeting the 10%, and it'll be necessary for us to do so.
So what you're saying is at this time, all of the money that has been paid into CPA is available and you are recommending expenditure of it and no money is in reserves relative to CPA at this time?
So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand the question. I'm gonna open my budget slides.
So
just, I don't know if this helps.
I don't have all of the budget numbers in front of me, but so there's over $1 million in the CPA fund. And you're recommending X dollars be spent out of the fund for these projects. So it appears that there's a lot of money remaining in the fund. And I'm trying to understand how much money is in the housing component, the open space, and the historic components of CPA right now, because I think the last numbers we got said 1.5 plus million were in the fund.
So our total budget that we were operating under was $993,000, and that is one because tax receipts come in over the course of the year. So we choose a more conservative budget, knowing that we have to see what the tax collections are as they're coming in over the course of the year, and we set our budget early. The other piece is some of the funding that's in the CPA budget right now, if you just look at the number that's in Munis, is earmarked funding for projects that we are waiting to then be expended. And we have contracts, as you know, because you've approved the terms, that say that if you don't finish your project within a set number of years, that funding then goes back into the CPA general fund and can be expended to, can be recommended for other projects. But there are outstanding projects currently that are still in motion. The fire truck is still being completed. We have Library Commons 2 coming back to us. That means that the $250,000 that we promised them over 2 years ago is still sitting in the CPA account, earmarked for them, waiting for it to be used. If we hit the time allotted for that project and it hasn't moved forward, it automatically goes back into the general fund and then can be re-recommended. And that's happened before, right? Early on, we did that with with the MIFA project because we had concerns about timeline. And so it was like, sure, you're saying that you need this funding right now and you can use it to, move this project forward, very quickly. But if you don't move to being shovel ready in 3 years, it gets re-returned and it gets moved to projects because we have to invest in projects that are actually going to move forward in a timely manner.
So is it advisable to fund a project for a second piece where the first piece hasn't been closed out yet?
So, this is why they came to us and they said, we would like an additional $250,000. And there were members of the committee that felt like, we understand you are saying that inflation occurred and you're coming back to us as one of your only sources of funding at this moment to help you move forward. They have already gone back into, that's why this project has extended so long. They went back into another state round of funding. They went back into another federal round of funding to ask for additional funding to move themselves forward once inflation occurred, because this project, was about to launch right as that occurred. And so they've gone and they've exhausted their capacity to get money from the state and the federal government in additional mini rounds of funding. And now they're coming back to us to say, this is still the gap, right? How much can you meet us? And we're saying, sure, we will try to meet you somewhere, but we've already funded your project. And so we don't want to fund another $250,000, but we will try to meet you out of the capacity of what this budget is to the tune of $100,000. And that project is very different. Whereas wind development is a single massive, former mill complex, and they're going to turn it into 88 affordable senior apartments, which people loved, that element of it, right? That it was, addressing seniors on a fixed income. That was one of the more popular elements of that project. The Library Commons 2 project is very much in line with our goal of infill and also taking properties that are blighted and bringing them back into use. So that project is very different because they're actually taking, 4 buildings, and either it's like some is the creation of new housing and some is taking buildings that are currently not in use and returning them to use. Which is just part of one of our CPA goals.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Of course.
Counselor Graney?
Yes, quickly, just a question through the chair to Councilor McGrath, Councilor Smith, I'm sorry. Was it $250,000 or something like that for the granite steps at the City Hall?
So you'll notice that
20,000.
shifted because they initially came to us in their initial eligibility application and asked
30.
for funding to do the work on the stone steps of the City Hall and the pillars of the annex. And then immediately upon, us saying, great, now go find quotes, found that what they were asking for was a small portion of what that project would cost, and that to do it underneath the realm of historic preservation would make it even more costly. And so instead, they asked for funding, a much decreased amount of funding, just in order to do a study, because then they'll have the documents they need in order to put it out for an RFP.
Okay, my question basically is an offshoot from that. The only one entrance and exit from the City Hall that is handicapped accessible is the one on the back of the City Hall from the back parking lot. Was there any discussion at all regarding the condition of that entrance and exit?
There was not in our committee, but also, very much we keep saying to folks, we can only look at the applications that were given. I know that we have encouraged all of the department heads to discuss with each other what they're planning to bring forward and to bring us applications. And, now that we have Sean Sheedy, we've been able to start getting more applications moving forward. But it's a process, especially because we are lacking a full-time city engineer. And that has really affected it. When Bob Parent was a city engineer, we had projects coming in, right? And moving out. And moving through, because he had a very oriented, he had a lot of knowledge and expertise, and he could move projects. And he knew what CPA could be used for, and he knew how to, leverage different funding sources. And then in the transition to Chris Baker, and then out of Chris Baker, there was a lot of, how can we use a source of funding? What is it again? How do we use it? What can be used for what? And then again, that position was empty. So, I've been with the CPA now for 5 years, and if we hire a new city engineer, it'll be our third city engineer. And every time that happens, things slow down and get less on point. They get less strategic. They get less relevant. Yeah.
Right.
I feel you.
I understand the difficulties of that situation. The thought just came to my mind when the person was speaking last night in public session, the handicapped individual, about the most discriminated group of people in the United States and in the state of Massachusetts, which are the handicapped people. I was just wondering if that discussion had come before the Community Preservation Act people or not. That's all. Just curious.
Absolutely.
But thank you.
And just so you know, CPA funding underneath the category of historic preservation does allow us to make sure that things are ADA compliant. Sometimes you run into some funding sources where it's almost like because it's historic, they will make the case that you can't use a funding source in order to make changes, right? The law is very clear on that in the CPA legislation, that you absolutely can make changes to an historic building in order to make it ADA compliant, and that you can use CPA funding to do so.
I understand that. I'm well aware of the ADA.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, so my first would be a question for the chair. This is presented to us as a package tonight. Shouldn't we be voting on each project individually?
I was going to ask that question because it's the first time that this has come before me, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Or do we do it without a recommendation and let it go before the full city council? Counselor Jordan or Counselor
Yeah, we can
Vacan?
amend it.
You
We've
know.
amended it before. Yeah, you can amend it if you wish.
Well, when you say amend it, explain what you mean by that.
Well, there's this whole laundry list of projects. You could say yes to a component of, say, 7 out of the 8 items, but item 8, theoretically, you could say, vote to reduce 200 to 100, I believe. I believe we've done that before.
The council can choose to approve, to reduce, or to reject a recommendation from the CPA. They just
Right.
cannot
I agree.
increase
Okay.
or redistribute.
Agreed. Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so, again, to Counselor Jordan, right now, it's presented to us as one order. Review for approval, the fiscal year '24 projects. So right now, we could just, we'd put it forward with a recommendation on each individual one as a package?
Right.
Okay.
You could say, we say yes as recommended to us, 7 out of the 8, but item 8, instead of 200, we say 80 or 100 or 50 or 0. You just can't move it to somewhere else, and you can't make it bigger.
Bigger than their request. Right.
Correct. Right.
Okay. So my next question then would be to Councilor McGrath-Smith. The Wayfinders project, what was their original request? Was for how much?
$250,000,
$250.
and 100,000 was recommended.
All right. So I'll stand by my previous statement, especially after everything I've just heard. The Wayfinders project, their need for more money was triggered by inflation, all right, which is no fault of their own. The $200,000 that Wind Development is seeking, they knew full well what they were getting into when they undertook the project. They knew the condition of that building. They knew it was required. And I still find it very disingenuous, their statement that they would have to make additional cuts. The amount that they're seeking is 0.0036% of the total budget. To say that small amount, less than 0.4% of the total cost of the project, is going to force them to make severe cutbacks, I just can't buy it. So, I don't know if we have other projects to discuss, or
I'm perfectly fine with this, and one thing I did want to say, and unless other counselors want to comment, to Counselor Graney's question about the handicap in the back of the building. Last night, we passed a grant from the Massachusetts Office on Disability. So let me talk to to Carl and the DPW, because that grant was going to be used to make sidewalks and curbs ADA. I don't know, I don't have my paperwork in front of me, but let's see, maybe they can do something to the back of the entrance off the the parking lot. So I'll look into that and let you know. Does anybody else have any questions or comments, or? All right, so do I hear a motion to put this forward without a recommendation, or what would your pleasure be?
well, I would try to put it forward with an amendment for zero for wind development and full funding 250,000 for wayfinders.
And which number is that, Mike, so I can write this down?
Meg?
You can say that you want to reduce the funding for WIN, but you cannot raise the funding for Library Commons 2.
Okay.
Okay, so I thought,
Can't give more than
It's not like CBGDG
I
money.
thought we couldn't give more than what they asked for.
No, what
Can't
they're
give more than the
recommending.
recommendation.
Okay, so then my amendment would be to move all the projects forward except for wind development.
Okay. Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Go ahead. For discussion, who wants to discuss it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, if not them, who? Is it, we're looking for the CPA board to come back to us? I mean, well, said another way, could we approve all the ones that aren't controversial, and then could we have further dialogue with CPA? Is there still time to have more dialogue around the 200? I guess I would ask that to Councilor McGrath Smith. Is, without holding up these other ones, could we get back to you on that other one? Maybe have a discussion? Or is there a timetable here?
I mean, we generally try to follow the timeline in terms of getting recommendations to council so that we can hear back in time to create contracts, which we create in-house. City solicitor does not create our own contracts. And most projects want to move forward quickly. And so that's why we have the timeline that we have, because it will usually take 6 to 8 weeks for us to actually craft the contracts and get them executed before July 1.
And
What it might be nice though is if we could take 2 votes, Madam Chair. Well, let's have one package that we're probably 5-0 on, and then the other one, that was going to be one of my amendments, to just segregate it out. And truthfully, I haven't made up my mind 100% on the WIN one, but I'd like it to go maybe to council. I need a couple more
here's a
weeks to think
question.
about
If,
it.
can we segregate it so tonight, the 5 Finance Committee people vote on 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 in a positive way, and table the other 2? Is that possible? Until the 1 and 2, or just,
Well, library
Madam
comments.
Chair.
wait a minute,
Right.
which one?
Just one.
Just number 1. So from 2 to 8, we would vote on that, and we would table number 1. Is that possible?
I guess my question is, like, what would the effect of tabling it be?
Well, could we move one without recommendation?
You can choose to do so.
Okay.
Kevin?
Do you
Yeah,
hear
that's
that?
fine.
Okay.
Yep, I think that's good.
Okay, so if nobody has any other questions or comments, I would make a motion, or hear a motion, that we take the number 1, the Appleton Mill Far Alpaca project, and not have a recommendation on that.
Second?
Okay, and I'll call the roll. Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio? Yes. Okay. And then I would like to entertain a motion that we take items 2 through 8 and vote positively on those.
Second?
Okay? Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio? Yes. Okay. 5-0. So we will forward that to the city council, and I just want to thank everybody for being here, of course, but it's important that we have your expertise, Councilor McGrath Smith. I think, you've been doing this for a long time, and we are not, some of us are new at this, so I certainly appreciate it, and on behalf of the committee, I think everybody appreciates what you have to say and the knowledge that you bring. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we go to our next item, which is from Councilor McGee. I hear a motion to take it up.
Motion to take number
Okay.
5.
Ordered that the city engineer, of which we don't have one, provide a list or layout of non-accepted roads and come in to discuss the options of fixing the roads. Thank you, Meg. Move we take it up for discussion. All those in favor? Aye. The mayor is here, and would you like to speak about this at all, or do we table it?
Just comments, because I saw it on the agenda, just wanted to bring up some background here. I think counselors that were around at the time remember I came in front of the council talking about this very order about what we want to do with roads that are not publicly accepted. There are some private roads with homes on them, and those homes that are not publicly accepted, we can't use Chapter 90 to maintain those roads. I remember dealing with this particular issue in Blandford, and what in that conversation I came in front of the council and said, I think it's a good idea to have the town's representatives come together and discuss what direction we want to go, maybe form some sort of policy if there is interest in tackling roads that are not publicly owned. And if there isn't, then there isn't, and residents that call and ask for their roads to be fixed, that these particular roads, we can refer to that conversation and just say, hey, look, and re-explain the public versus private. So I obviously new council, we don't have an engineer at the moment. I think the last time we left off, Chris Baker was putting a list together of all those roads, and then also on that list describing the conditions of that road, how much it would cost to fix, and so forth. And so in that process, we lost Chris, and this is moot at this point. So I don't know if you guys just want to continue the table or send it back. We can reissue an order, or however you want to handle this. I just want to make sure that you guys understood or remember or recall the history behind this order and what I'm hoping to get out of this process to manage communication to those homeowners that live on these roads, what we're working on.
I certainly think that it's important to try to get this done as soon as possible for, like you said, those people that live on those roads, and the fact that you can't use Chapter 90 monies to repair these roads. There is a list here that we have. I'm assuming everybody got a copy of that. That is like 2.5 pages long. So there are a lot, and I think that we can all go home tonight and pray that a city engineer is hired, and that will help us a great deal. But in the meantime, I do think the best thing to do is to table it, to see, I don't know how far we can go with this. Councilor Jordan has his hand up. I'll recognize him.
Yeah, friendly suggestions are, we do have contracted services currently for engineers, so maybe, they could come up with that. I think we do. I think the mayor's right on the money in terms of what we need to do here, which is to develop some sort of policy. I think part of the policy is going to start with an evaluation of the roads that are currently private roads. These folks pay a lot of taxes, many of them. They deserve to have equal treatment as the people who are not on public roads, that are on public roads. And whether they're paying their taxes to the state or they're paying their taxes here to the people of Holyoke, they deserve to have their street maintained in the same way as anybody else. And a lot of these folks don't even realize they might even be on a private street. That list is quite extensive. The other thing is, I think we start with a survey, perhaps, one of our own accord. What is the real condition of these streets? Some of them don't need probably any repair currently. They're still fine. Some of them might need repair. So that might be a discussion about what becomes our plan from there. Then maybe the discussion becomes, do we need them, the residents, to approve becoming an accepted public way? And there's typically process for them to do that and to petition the city to do that. And we've done that up in Blueberry Hill on a couple streets, not too long ago, actually. And so, and we did accept them as public streets. So, you know, we want to be able to treat everybody fairly. We want them to feel like we're representing everyone. And I think we need to develop a process, because otherwise these people are all left in a lurch. They're until we develop a cohesive policy, we're almost taking a standoffish approach to keeping their streets maintained. And I think they deserve better than that from us. So I think we should be proactive, and I think maybe it definitely involves inspecting the street and then us thinking about that priority list of ones that need repair. What's our action plan on those? And I think that's where we probably would start.
Yeah, that's spot on. I want to get to a point where we can actually take action.
Right.
I know there's a handful of roads, or one or two in particular that I can think of off the top of my head that I like to get done yesterday. The issue is because they're not publicly accepted at this point, I don't want to get jammed up, right? Like, conversation comes later. Why are we fixing a road that's right? And some of these roads too, like, you have a private road that you might have 20 to 30 houses on them. Then you might have a long road with just 1 or 2 houses on them.
Right.
Or even one house. Is it a road or is it a private driveway? Or then you have alleyways. A lot of folks in the city think that the city, that the alleyways are the responsibility of the cities, and they're not. And so, we want to be sure that as we go forward with trying to put a policy for these private roads, conditions, and what, we want to be sure we somehow define alleyways. And, 'cause it's so many questions come up, and before I even put energy or time into this, that obviously, to everything Councilor Jordan just said, we want to be able to come together as a community and come up with some agreements, before we start tackling any of these roads. They do get plowed. They do get
Trash pickup.
Trash pickup.
Yeah.
they get plowed, and they get the potholes fixed
Yeah.
at minimum, so that services can get through to the public services can get to the
Yeah.
residents. But like West Cherry, I think is the worst one. It is in really rough, and I'm sure there's some homeowners that bought homes there that didn't know that it was I can't imagine those residents coming together trying to come up with a couple $100,000 to. And for those roads that Councilor Jordan was talking about publicly accepting, like, some roads, it's a little complicated because it's so narrow and it has to be a certain size. Now you're talking about widening the road into people's properties, taking down trees, and that might. So it's a very tricky situation, but one that's important, and something that if we can get the minds together to figure this out, I'm sure there's some sort of path we can pave here, no pun intended, to start fixing some of these roads.
Yeah. And looking at this list, not everyone needs to be accepted. There are some of them, most of them already are. It's just 2.5 pages, and to look at it, it's like East Court. There's nothing there, so I have to assume that that's okay. It looks like he went down every single street alphabetically, and then the ones that weren't accepted, he put them down on the list. Okay. So, Councilor Jordan, what would you suggest?
I agree with your proposal to table it. I don't think we're going to solve this obviously tonight, but I think we need to think about this. And what I'm only suggesting tonight is I think it's worth having the contracted services if it requires the engineer. And I think it also requires us to, at least on the ones that we do feel are a priority, start there. And then, the ones that, like, the mayor is correct 100%, some of them don't meet the configurations, it would be problematic, but the ones that do, and then, sometimes the neighbors may have a choice to make, some of it might be, what, we're going to need 2 extra feet over here and there. That's unacceptable. Maybe they say, leave it as is, and we don't want to be public, who knows? But I would just like to see us working towards a process, because what happens is you get these tough problems and they never get solved. And that's probably why these haven't been solved for so many decades. So at least if we're working towards a goal, we're getting something done. And that's all we can be expected to do at this point, I think.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Counselor Graney.
Just quickly, the most important thing, the mayor is absolutely right, and Councilor Jordan is absolutely right. The most critical issue here is to make sure that emergency vehicles can get through these passageways. You know, especially the fire engines and things like that if there's a situation. So the ones that probably, if you put them in pecking order, those are the ones that would be prioritized, I would think. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
So since we're on the subject, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be like, it's not going to be the process anything we'll be able to figure out within the next month or so. But I'm wondering, and maybe it's something we don't hash out today, or maybe it's a separate order. If I was to put in a proposal to fix West Cherry Street, which is the one that's in most disrepair at the moment, you know, would there be any objections? You think councilors would approve that or support that? That would be the one road I think is, if anyone takes a drive out there and checks it out, I think you'd agree that it's pretty terrible. And these roads, because they're private, or not publicly accepted, we treat it as a capital, so it'll, just like we treat every other capital expense, we'll come up with we'll identify a source and submit a proposal, but don't want to waste anybody's time if there's no appetite for it.
I certainly would favor doing that street, since it's the worst. I have no problem with that at all. Do we want to do a motion on that, or just have you look into it
I can
and then
submit
get
a
back
separate
to us?
order. I was just kind of putting it out there since we were on the topic. But
Okay.
I guess my only friendly suggestion, if I might, Madam Chair,
Yep.
is, I think that is a good one. I think the mayor is right about that. If we can be strategic, and maybe it would be very pricey to probably pave the whole thing, so maybe if there's certain washout areas that have been really prone, because I know it's loose gravel at a lot of spots, maybe we can do sections, and like the worst spots that consistently wash out, maybe that way we can break it up over a few years. I think people would even appreciate that if that helps on the budget wise.
Kind of like a little bit at a time.
Madam Chair, quick question, please.
I'm sorry.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is, but is there any ARPA funds left for a project like this?
the ARPA's tight, but I don't think ARPA doesn't do roads.
I don't think so.
I don't think that's an eligible expense.
CBDG monies?
The area doesn't qualify.
Okay.
I think I'll come up with, let me identify the costs.
Okay.
Come up with some proposals. It might be doable, palatable. And because it's not a publicly accepted road, maybe some sort of MOU or agreement, if we were to do anything on that road, that resident signed saying, hey, look, you understand that XYZ. But,
Okay.
Obviously, beyond just this particular road, and then I'll come up with some proposed ideas, costs, estimates, and whatnot. We do got to figure out, how do we want to tackle there are some roads in town that you don't even think were private roads at all. And makes sense. No wonder why they're in the condition that they're in. We never touched them.
Right.
Small, from a couple feet to a couple 100 feet. So
Okay, well,
figure something out.
if you do that, Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, I agree with what we're trying to do here. I would just caution everybody and make my editorial comment. We're not talking about just the possibility of paving a road here. We don't want to pave a road and then find out we have to tear it up for sewer, we have to tear it up for water, we have to tear it up for gas, stormwater separation, all of the above. Which brings me to my editorial comment. We're not going to do this with a part-time city engineer. The person has their hands full just trying to keep up with the day-to-day stuff without layering on new projects. We need to really move forward and properly fund a city engineer, a qualified, competent person for this post.
Yep. Yes, I agree. So we'll do a motion to continue it to a later date when we have more information from the mayor. Does that sound like a good motion?
Or did we
Okay.
want to wait for a new motion?
But
Are you saying?
I said, or did we want to wait for a new motion from for a new order? I thought that
We
was
can-
what we
so
were
we-
talking
This
about
one
as
would
well.
be tabled,
Okay,
and then I'll just have an order submitted to
okay,
tackle West Cherry.
okay,
Okay.
all right. And just one side question. Where is Jug Handle Road? Because that's on this list. It doesn't need to be paved or anything, but on a nice day, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to say, drive to Jug Handle Road and see where it takes me. Then- So, okay, so we'll do that. Motion to table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Counselor Jordan,
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan?
yes,
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Givner?
Yes.
And Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
Okay. And then we just have one more, which I'll take up, but it's a copy. And I don't know why this was sent, and I haven't heard from Counselor Bartley, but the DPW and mayor consider repairing the sidewalk and tree belt proximate to 548 South Street. Anybody have any idea if this has been done? You know?
I do have a report on this, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
go ahead.
All right, so I did have a chance to speak to Counselor Bartley. He did call me. He's requesting, just to give the background on this one, this is some of the curbing in front of the Taino restaurant, the former TNT Pizza. That's a new Puerto Rican restaurant there on South Street. Very nice restaurant, by the way. And they're trying to fix the curbing and make it look nice for the business and the people that go there. And it's getting more traffic. And the request is if we could just approve this and send it along to the mayor. It's going to live or die with the mayor's office. There's either going to be the money to fix what they need to fix over there or it's not. So
Okay.
I don't think finance can really do anything more with it. It really would need an appropriation from the mayor if he wants to go
Okay.
forward with it. So
Okay, is that on a
that
motion?
was yeah, motion is to receive and adopt the request and refer it to the mayor, yeah.
Okay. And second, okay. Counselor Jordan?
Yes,
Counselor Sullivan?
yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Givner?
Yes.
And Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
motion to adjourn.
All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, very much, and thank the auditor as well. And,
Be careful driving home.
yep, I actually got a text from Donnie Welch telling me to be careful driving home, so let's be careful out there. All right,
Have a
thank
good
you,
night.
everybody.
Be
Thank you,
safe.
Jeffrey. Thank you, Scott.
Good night.